This shit ain't funny. This ain't funny. This ain't funny. But it's funny. It's funny, but it ain't funny. But it's funny. We're not doing that right now. We're doing this right now. It's funny, but it's not funny. It's not funny, you guys. It's not funny. Let's give an honest source to the Creator, to the Most High, for making this possible. Because what better feeling during your healing journey to learn to laugh after you've cried, or laugh at your pain in more of a healthy, holistic way. Like I'm navigating through this shit so differently now, to where it's like, haha, I'm embracing this villain stage, whatever you want to call it. So let's give our honor to Source, to the Creator, whatever you subscribe to the let's give our honor to the ancestors. No. Fuck. Bruh. I want to say there's no worse but better feeling, because it's like recognizing how the poison is the pain. The poison, you recognize in drinking the poison, in your ignorance, like you recognize, like, and you're not aware of it, then you realize you're drinking the poison until you realize and look in the cup. Something I was eating. You realize, like, oh shit, this has been poisoning me. It's got to be one of my greatest chapters of my life right now. Because I'm realizing, like, it's like a way of like standing alone, but I'm not alone. But it's like standing alone at the other side of the bridge. Like something I created. Or, oh my gosh, it's like watching a table that I built and letting the people, like, what's that verse? I shall build a table. That's one of my favorite verses. I shall build a table in the presence. Psalms 23, symbolizing divine protection, provision, and honor in the midst of adversity. It signifies that God, Source, whatever, provides peace and abundance, allowing believers to thrive even while surrounded by challenges, fears, and opposition. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Okay, that's wow. So I was getting this while I was saying that. Like how, before I get to the bridge thing, how the table being prepared is like you building your table, you're building your life, while everyone just assumes wherever they are in their life from their perspective, whether they want to support you building the table, support with, even if the fact of like knowing you may not have things, but they still watch you make this shit happen and watch you build it is even more amazing, because the doubt of people not being able to. So in there, not like, you ever notice how somebody like in their peripheral, it's like they try to focus on their life, but at the same time they're like looking at you, like watch you do it, and so eventually like it's like they can't help but focus and realize, oh shit, they did it. So that for me, like in the presence of your enemies, it's like I'm going to make, like the Most High, like, even if they don't want to pretend that even if you don't see these people day to day, even if you, whatever it is, I'm still going to make it seem like your table is not just in this minute, if that's the word, or like this minimize or micro aspect. It goes from micro to macro. So it's like, even if people just assume that, oh, they don't have any money, no money, or they don't have this, they don't have the stability, they don't have, okay, but you're not the Most High. You're not given the insight. You're not given the vision. You're not given the ability, the internal strength, the strength that you do not see. Just like it said, symbolizing divine protection. So that divine protection is from those people who choose to be an enemy of you, in whether it be breadcrumbing, not supporting, or just simply looking down on you just because. So just the fact of how it says, in the midst of adversity, challenges, where you're surrounded by fear and opposition and so forth. And some of that don't even have to be your own. It could be other people's. So moving forward, I was sitting here like, bro, I'm very much aware at a stage in my life where going down to the bridge analogy, sometimes where life will take you through things, like to realize in watching and having to live the experience, seeing people who purposely, due to where they are, no judgment, like collect karmic debts around, like in karmic debt to the universe, and you having those receipts knowing like they burned the bridge, and then expecting you to throw, what do they call it, a life jacket or a life thing or a life vest or whatever, or expecting you to send a fucking boat for them to swim across. Expecting you now to do when you were in that position, not saying you burned the bridge, or even if you did, it's just a repair. Like to try to just assume that you have to repair, you have to rebuild, reconstruct, you have to do everything. And so for me, I'm recognizing like I had to see that life will take you through those moments of letting you see what it is when people blame you for their actions and take no accountability. So now they're forced to, even in their delusion or even in their confusion of where they are, assume that you're the bad guy or the whatever it is. And that's why I said, in accepting I'm the villain, I'm recognizing now, as in me head down or just focusing on what I'm doing and building towards it, I've been building not only my table, but my bridge away from you mother lovers, away from you suckers, away from you fake and phonies. And even when I associated myself, when I was in ignorance and so forth, not even judging myself. So I'm like, no. And it reminds me of shout out to, what's her name, Akashic Prince, when she was talking about how that bridge is like just basically something I already been getting clarity of, but she clarified it like access to you. Like them having access to you, or no longer having direct access to you. Because if you're building towards something individually in your life for that bigger picture, during that healing process, I've learned like I'm not supposed to convince people otherwise. They know, they show me where they stand with me. They show me what they prioritize and value. And so one of the biggest things I'm going to get into now is realizing I'm standing alone over here at this bridge. And I get to decide who comes over, or not even comes over, but who's with me over there. It's none of anyone's concern or business. It's who I choose to do business with and associate with. So that being said, there are people in your life where people know that in trying to access you or come close to you, that they know it won't ever be the same, or you don't ever have to, they know basically it will have to be work or certain things they have to put in just to even assume that it's going to be a cakewalk. Because for me, I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because I already kind of know what people are coming with, and I have to ask myself, do I want to take that on? I don't have to. So now one of the biggest things that I was laughing about earlier before getting into that introduction or getting past it is, man, one of the biggest things, like I was sitting here like, fuck, like, whoa. When you really realize how much you grew up in a pattern of people not even showing you how important recognizing patterns are. I was sitting here and get through this. It probably won't be a long video, but I was sitting here like, man, it amazes you how much you allowed or what was allowed and exposed in your life very young that you had no knowledge of. Like you said, like, damn, I tolerated so much, or I realized like very young, having no structure, no foundation, that I learned these behavior patterns or in the inability of someone giving me something stable to be discerning, to know how to protect myself from people who are an endangerment to themselves and other people. I became that, and then I not just attracted that, but I had to learn through that. And I was like, bro, I was sitting here reflecting like, fuck, this person keeps showing me their patterns. What am I trying to convince? Why am I keep being so much of a service to them when I'm not getting the reciprocity? And I was sitting here reflecting on a connection I was in, no longer in. I was sitting here like, fuck. You know, shout out, like I said, I don't have to agree. And agreeing is one thing, but resonating with something. Kevin Samuels said something in a video, and it was just related to like relationships and connections. But he had mentioned like asking a woman, how did she exit a connection or relationship? I was like, whoa. I've never had knowledge of stuff like this. I never cared to. And it's not that it didn't matter. I just realized like I had no one to bring awareness to how important it is to, as I've said before in the video, being a good judge of character, or just being aware and being discerning of how you choose people and how it reflects yourself, your well-being, and so forth. He always mentioned high value, which he goes into saying like similar things about how, as a man, if you don't know how to control your sexual desires, then this will make you less valuable, or it won't make you as valuable as you assume to be. Yes, and I can relate to that from a perspective of, again, in learning how to build what I'm building now, I'm so much more focused on the insight that I'm giving and what I'm building and the integrity that it takes to go to there. The authenticity, the integrity aspect is more so, I can be on here saying any fucking thing, but I have to be honest with myself even outside of this. So with that, I know what it is to go away from giving up my sexual, wanting to do things sexually, but I tell myself like, for one, it has revealed to me in the past with women who don't have boundaries in it, but also that's all they have to offer. And so if that's all you have to offer as man and woman, then the result from that is kids, or building something just from a place of what? More so a poverty mindset, or just the fact of you having no boundaries to really focus on what you want to expand on, whether it be your own personal goals, because outside of just sex, there's so many other things to expound on, to expand on, to build on, to create, to focus on mentally, emotionally, financially, because that plays a major role in even intimacy. There's other ways of sex, outside of sex, that are intimate. And that comes with learning self. I had to learn that. I had to learn, like, it's not just so much loving myself and loving the parts of me that I didn't even realize I had no boundaries, I didn't respect, I didn't honor. I realized these were patterns that I was consistently and persistent on that was fucking just not just destroying my life, but had an effect on everyone that was connected to me. So for one, I had to prioritize my well-being over everything. And this is a part of it. So with that, when he mentioned like asking that woman and so forth, it hit me about a connection I was in, about like how I saw not just their pattern, but I recognized my role. So before I just go on a tangent about somebody else, no, I had to see my role in my pattern, because again, whatever I ignored, I was allowing into my reality, into my world. I was allowing that shit to play a major role in influencing how I day-to-day move, protected myself, um, how this is going to create whatever life, whether I wanted, I desire, or didn't want at all. So I noticed a pattern of someone that I talked to, and I start to realize, like, it's easy for us to point the finger. I start to realize, like, the pattern of how they got out of relationships with men. And I was like, this is something alarming. And that's one of the most fucking gut-wrenching things, if you know, when it comes to maturity. The mind will show you shit you think you don't want to see. But once you're elevating within yourself, whether you want to call it healing, evolving, just maturing in so many ways, you will have to see the energy that plays out through that person, their patterns, their values, and so forth, to where you realize I have the opportunity to level up. As you as your standards become heightened within yourself, you'll realize how much you've settled or lower your standards for other people. It's not. You can say it's personal for you, but it's you see it now, especially, let's say, if you're in how important it is, like partnership, relationships, or whatever. That relationship with yourself and that partnership with yourself, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and so forth, has to be a priority. Because if you don't see it, you'll see how much it has contaminated, or even the toxicity of it has seeped into what it is you're trying to create. But some of us have the illusion of love, or the is romanticization a word, or romanticized aspect of love cloud our judgment and confusion and so forth. And so, and again, and in that comes with self-abandonment, self-sacrificing to please or people please. So, and that comes with, again, learning self-worth, self-value. So moving forward, I wrote something that was coming to me because I had elders tell me a lot of things before, but it plays into what I'm speaking about the patterns. It says, never feel guilty in letting people down, especially if you learn to hold others to a higher standard over yourself. This will always lead you to a road of self-destruction, only to decide whether or not you've learned a lesson or choose to ignore the self-inflicted patterns. It's natural for human beings to be dependent until one reaches a breaking point. Or basically, an elder told me years ago, like, if you get too caught up in people trying to hold you up, think about holding something up. You're gonna get tired. Your arms are gonna get tired. That's natural. But what it is in a balance aspect, it's like a person, an individual, whether in partnership or even alone, has to know the importance of holding yourself to a higher standard as well. Whether that be your personal goals, whether that be experiences that you've had and so forth, to rise above, to transmute, to ascend higher, to whether that be a way of thinking, approaching life, and so forth. So I've learned that through, again, it says overextending in life and not knowing what it is to balance life. And I also mentioned how children learn this. Children know this all too well. You know what I'm saying? To where, like, you will see them burn themselves out or do certain things. But what has happened is, when we have had experiences where we're not given a balanced life, or single parent homes, or certain things that haven't been balanced or structured in a healthy way, we unconsciously don't realize, like, we're feeding our children this through our unconscious patterns, or even through our nonverbal cues or subconscious fears, when we don't choose to step into our authenticity or our integrity, or uphold our standards. Sometimes even when you have to tell a partner or whatever it is, like, hey, I have to prioritize my well-being. things may change and so forth, the environment, or even just the fact of how you have to step away from things because of that. And so this is, again, brings awareness to patterns. Like I said, I wanted to ignore about an individual when Kevin mentioned like how you have to pay attention. This goes for women too, how men and women leave relationships. And so for me, I had to pay attention to where an individual I knew was very conflict avoidant. And he made that apparent, like how some people, conflict resolution is healthy. You know, passive aggressiveness is a red flag. Like the fact of like, how someone is overly nicely and all this other stuff. I stay clear from people like that because we all have a shadow. We all have anger. When you think about the human experience, we all have emotions. So for someone to just express joy all the time, that's some mental shit right there, because I look at kids, and even when I don't give my daughter something what she wants, or my son, they show emotions and they naturally self-soothe or try to find a balance. Even when they don't even like when we try to soothe them or try to give them some type of resolution. It's a natural way of balance, countering things. So I noticed how a person, I'm trying to tell you, like I had to notice, like, oh shit, I was a rebound, or how you say like you got into something and you can assume that you're winning, but too many of us we overlook the patterns, the learned behavior patterns, or even the fact of how you realize, like I noticed even with myself and the person, how you can go along with something for so long and just assume like, oh, everything is just great. And for some of you, with kids involved or whatever it is, you don't look at the pattern. The pattern, I was like, okay, I was like, how did I meet this person? Well, at the time, we both were in some shit. And then we linked up, or if you want to call it sneaky link or whatever it was, both were having like it was really, to me, and see, this is where the confusion was. It was nothing like truly committable. Like I didn't care to commit. At the time in my wounded state, I was more so looking for shelter. When I base this on human basic needs, a lot of these connections with the women I was with was rooted in the fact of subconsciously I wasn't given what I was supposed to young. So then guess what I did? This is behavior patterns that I developed of clinging unhealthily to women for shelter, food, finances, nurturing, basic basic feminine like attributes, or coming from the feminine archetype of how a mother was supposed to be in a healthy way. So I unconsciously, through my patterns, or subconsciously lived that out as a little boy until I got to that age where I realized like I was, from my pain, trying to cling on to whomever it was. Like I know now, realize in my victimization, they became a victim of things I never acknowledged, I never accepted within myself, until I realized like it got as far until I had kids with my daughter, and where a lot of these things that were repressed and unrepressed came up, and so, or unprocessed as well. So I looked at their pattern and I was like, whoa, this person is like a mirror, or the energy is like reflecting back to me. Like they have similarities, but it was just different. It was just coming from a father wound. And I realized like I met this person and it was a mirror effect, because again, my perspective that the mother wound gives birth to the father wound, and the mother wound also so me having more of a deep mother wound, or an emotional attachment to things, it was playing out like so much so to where all of these unsuccessful relationships or basically wounded ones will always lead me back to where my mother ended up knowing, or she, if you've been watching me, like she would have some type of try to put her hand or something in the connections that I was in or so forth. Or there will always be some type of objection or disagreement, or no one's ever good in a way. I start to recognize that to be smothering and her own abandonment wounds and father wounds and so forth. That vicariously she lived out through me, like in an emotionally incessive way. So now I realized that I did this similarly to the women that I was with. It's like a fucking therapy, like I'm telling the therapist. But anywho, the patterns that I did not want to see, I start to see, and I was like, oh shit. How I met this person again was through the fact of me realizing, they have similar patterns, but she is just doing this in like doing this in a way of what a woman would do. Or like just the energy was just playing out through her as a woman. I was like, whoa. So then I was like, okay, let me put two and two together. And as much as I wanted to express this to them, you can't, one, control someone, make them see it and so forth. But what I did notice on this journey, because this is where the growth comes in. One is to tell a person. Two is to realize like the accountability. Again, it goes back to not feeling guilty of letting people down, meaning like I held you to the standard because at the time I didn't see myself, I didn't have myself through my wounded lens. But now that I see myself in a completely different way of life and approach, how I approach it, I no longer see you a certain way, but I have to see you exactly for what you're showing or the reality of that. So I have to see the energy and the spirit for what it is, the pattern. And one of the things I recognized of the energy was a person that overextended or held other people, or you know what they say, falling in love with potential, or held them to a higher standard than their own. So what this start to reciprocate, or what was not reciprocated in the relationship, was the very thing of being able to consistently be honest with themselves about the pattern and then course correct or counter it. So one would make excuses to not better themselves or not make, change the pattern, or they will, due to whatever psychologically is going on, they don't feel the courage. Some people can, they'll say they do better, or they'll make goals. Let's use this as an example, like make goals and say, oh, I'm doing this. But in reality, you cannot not see the pattern that what you're seeing that you're doing, and then ignore the fact of like, you're saying one thing, but you're doing another. And so what ends up happening is that I recognize the what I know now is like being unequally yoked or not balanced, or this person's imbalances as I balance myself or become more structured. So what I notice on the surface, that some people will perceive people to be more structured, but I knew what they were hiding, because they would portray one thing externally, and that was their inability to see their patterns, to see like, okay, you're going to get the same results. You know that, right? I'm not going to get the same results because I did the shadow work or the internal work to catch the pattern that I did not want to see, knowing that if I kept doing what you were doing, and it's almost like a trauma bond in a way, then I have to go look and see how we connected. I can't ignore that. As much as you want to paint the picture that this is one thing, no, integrity is knowing like, okay, we have been trauma bonding. And a lot of you, like, it's going to hit you when you realize, like, listening and replaying this, is that in patterns, learned behavior patterns, it can be a trauma bond and you're not even realizing it. But that's the thing about the healing journey that will be revealed. And that right there, where you give the person an opportunity as you present these things. And this is why I used to feel, through an unhealthy attachment, feel guilty for letting a person know, like, I'm not okay with this, or this is this, and this is happening. So that's me giving you like a warning, or I'm not wanting to go through this again. So that gives a person an opportunity to repair. This is where healing can happen for you and the individual, but that planting that seed gives that person an opportunity to heal what is within them, that same pattern. But this is the thing that most people ignore or overlook, is patience. But at the same time, everyone doesn't have the patience to navigate and go through the emotions, because their lived experience is different than their partner. And more so, like, they're grieving, or however they got to go through that, and that learned behavior pattern, they have to, there's a lot of acceptance in there. This is what a lot of people are not, they're afraid to get to that point of accepting, like, oh, I built this on a lie. I built this on sin. And that, for a lot of you, can be the idea of what marriage is, or the idea of romanticizing love, the idea of 50-50, and all these different aspects where you really have abandoned yourself and sacrificed into overgiving, overextending, and so forth, and never really held yourself to a higher standard because you were never given that blueprint. Relationships, whether karmically, through the lessons, teach us these things. It's not a bad or a good thing. It's just the lesson. I was able to see it even when a person ignored it. Because we would have these debates or arguments about the same thing. And now I've gotten to a place, I told myself, I'm like, yo, at that moment I said, why do I keep, what the saying goes, like, you keep trying to beat a dead horse? This person is set in their ways, and they're going to continue to get the same results and so forth. Now, whether that be with whomever they're with, it just won't be with me anymore. And that's why I'm grateful that, and it's not always perfect, because I've learned that sometimes we can stay a little longer than we want to, because of, for some of us, depending on your experience or lived experience, it can be for kids, it can be for a job-related thing, it can be for anything. But a lot of it, again, brings awareness to the fact of self-value and self-worth. Because I couldn't ignore the fact of why this person was angry, or why they ignore certain things, or you're supposed to have this healthy dialogue, and sometimes it's not the best, but then you get to a point where, like, you're tired because you feel like you've exerted, or, hey, I'm telling you this, and this is a pattern, or, hey, maybe we didn't realize that we came together on this and this and this, and I see this is probably why we're doing this. So again, the pattern at that moment, I recognized that it was, sometimes the connections are meant for you to realize that you are literally mirroring this person in the energy, and you both have the opportunity individually, through whatever you're pursuing, to face things within yourself that can no longer be ignored. So whether you're in a partnership, a marriage, have children, and being a generational curse breaker or a cycle breaker, one of the most challenging things is you want to encourage and push your partner towards whatever it is they're doing. But also in that is, in breaking generational curses or being a cycle breaker, is to realize, like, some people are willing to stay comfortable and be content, and will actually project it onto the other person about how stuck they feel, how stagnant. A lot of you in marriages and relationships have felt this way. It's not your fault. Even when someone is projecting, because it's your birthright to feel sovereign. It's your birthright to not just be free, but have the free will to be able to pursue those very things from an integrative place or authentic place and so forth. You having these big goals or dreams or these ideas, you will love to present it to your spouse or partner, whomever it is, because that's the beauty of the inner child or the essence that wants to. In pursuing these things, you're going to have to navigate through certain cycles. There are going to be things you didn't see, because a lot of people don't know, like, these are spiritual contracts that you're in. These are things that you are in. And on a deeper, even spiritual level, some of you have agreed to things together, whether they be a soulmate, but some people just assume that you have one. No, soulmate go through soul lessons together. So this person, I've noticed this, I'll tell you from experience. I've split from people, right? And I just knew that there was something deeper there. But again, I realized this person wasn't ready to evolve or elevate. At some moments, it wasn't meant, because every connection wasn't meant to be romanticized or to be sexual, to be intimate. It can be on different levels. Some things are meant to be platonic. Some of y'all realizing some of the people you could have kids with, damn, this shit should have been platonic. It should have been friendship. Some of us skipped over that part. Because again, at one time I met someone, I had to recognize, like, how do we meet? For one, we were going through things, we were doing things and so forth. We met, we went off, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting here like, that saying goes, how you get them is how, what is that? How does that shit go? The same way you get them is the same way you lose them. And that's just like a way of energy. What you reap is what you sow. So that's the thing I could not ignore in some of y'all connections. And then also, in some of that way, it doesn't always have to end that way, because how you get them is how you lose them is also, for some of us, is a season of choosing yourself. And then depends on where that person has grown to and see their value, because that's the thing about a lot of contracts spiritually. It isn't just physical. A lot of these things where you agree to come to mirror certain back learn lessons and so forth, or even just the fact of like clear certain karma together. For some of you, do certain things, see the bigger lesson, and one of you, if not both, is willing to be able to see your self-worth and value. And sometimes somebody may be just the guiding light for that. And that's why you can see someone move on and someone still be bitter or heartbroken, or even the fact of whatever it was. But I learned this. I moved on from people, whether they moved on and so forth, because I experienced it too. It was through my unhealthy attachment to them. Whether it was in a possessive way, whether it was through a wounded lens, I was more focused on, I have to have them, this and this, not to mention even the interaction with sex. That's a whole nother intimate aspect of energy, emotions, mental, spiritual. You're intertwining, you're doing so many different things to where some of us never were taught how to cleanse ourselves after that, how to give ourselves, my elders say, like a year to recover, to cleanse yourself, to pour into yourself, and so forth. And I would be lying, but that same individual, I literally, like, when I was telling y'all how I went absent for 2 years, this was the individual, which again, I almost felt like we had unresolved things, but in reality, I realized like I was more focused on just wanting something to be bigger than what it was. I wanted to make it seem like okay, they're ready, but what I ignored is that they still didn't allow themselves. This is the important thing about shadow work or healing, is that my restraining from sex during that time, I went through a cleansing, like 2 years or something. I went through a cleansing. I wasn't intimate with anyone. I got close, but I didn't do it. It was discipline. In that time frame, you know, if you've been watching, I was creating artwork, masterpieces, and so forth. I was creating so much because I realized like I was setting stone to the foundation, to the empire that I wanted to create. That was a priority for me, not sex. You know what I'm saying? I had to really balance those things out. In reconnecting with the individual, I realized I wanted to ignore it then, but I could no longer ignore it like later on, to where even if it wasn't clear to them, I realized like I got into something where I didn't have to, but I did anyway. And it's one of those lessons where this won't ever happen again, because you realize like I don't have to get stung twice by a fucking bee to realize that it's a bee, or I need to just stay clear and mind my business, or I don't have to get burned by the fire again. So what I'm saying is that for a lot of us individually, in doing the work is a responsibility to know that the reward isn't something, and it's not to devalue people, but it's the reward isn't someone who didn't do it. The reward is for you to know that someone else did. And you'll be able to be discerning in recognizing that, and be able to see the bigger picture, and be able to reflect on that which you built, but also recognize like I could not ignore the fact of the person, and it showed me. So I'm gonna be honest, it showed me the fact of things that I've done. So that was my lesson too. I was able to see everything full circle, to where the person moved forward, got into something with someone else, and it was the same pattern. It was just immediately jumping to someone within a short time span, and never allowing themselves to face subconscious fears, to face themselves, to heal, to just do any type of shadow work. And sometimes I know people who have experienced this, you will get back into something with someone and they'll convince you so much so that they're this, they're that, they're saying it with their mouth and so forth, but in reality, their actions are saying one thing. And I kind of knew that, like I said, it wasn't so much about letting them down. Again, when you holding someone up, you're not being honest with yourself, knowing that you need to let them down because you're tired of just giving this illusion, or and feeding into the illusion that they're giving you, knowing that they built a false identity around even the fact of them saying that they've done the inner work, that they've did these things and so forth. But this is the thing about the integrity and recognizing what the liability is. If you don't see it now, you'll recognize in the long run, this person will become a liability to what I'm building. So now I have to realize they don't know, but I know that they burnt the bridge with me and so forth, because I can see before, because in our interactions years before, I can see how through my pattern where I done things to where they wanted to move on. But that's the thing where people ignore. You can move on all you want to, but are you still reenacting or repeating the same behavior patterns? Because if there's no discipline, you can't fool the spirit, you can't fool the mind. The universe keeps receipts. You can't ignore it. And one of the things I start to recognize and I start to become aware of, I was like, whoa, I didn't want to see it. And I noticed how troubling and how aggressive, or it's almost like when I said these things to them, you know, I even called, I was so raw and transparent, because with me, I would want someone to call out things. And then that's the uncomfortable aspect of being on the other end of the spectrum. It's like people will call you out. I've been there before when someone called me out like, hey, you know what you doing, that ain't cool, da, 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 da. And it was uncomfortable, but I wanted to ignore it. But with growth and with time, I realized it's not, they were right in a way, but it wasn't so much a right and wrong. It was the accountability that I was running from. And I recognized that in a person, to where, again, the pattern, how we met, I realized like this person didn't heal. This person didn't focus more on themselves, because what can happen for a lot of you or in connections is that even in you think you want to rekindle and build on with things with people, they still will show patterns of where they are energetically. They will still show things where they don't really know how to stay consistent with something or persistent for so long with a goal, with the simplest things, with building towards something. And we find ourselves in something that becomes unrequited. And so the reward again is doing the inner work to align with something that is required. Because again, that comes with standards, that comes with value, that comes with worth. And so with this, when I mention the bridge, is that sometimes we have to be in things to allow people to try to build that thing. And especially if you have children, like, there's almost like an emotional cord there for a mother and a father and so forth, or with kids through the kids. But again, some of the most challenging things for some of us is that even with distance, the person still has the opportunity. I hear, because I used to hear people say like, oh, I have the kids, I have this and that. You still have awareness on showing up for yourself 5-10 minutes a day. It doesn't matter, because the pattern will show up. And that's through the uncomfortability of finding balance again. Like I said, one of my videos talks about I had to tell someone. I had to tell a lot of people, whether I told them or not, man, this is my season to fuck with me more than ever. I don't care if you like it or not. As much as you may not like it, it's going to balance out a whole lot of things. It's going to restore a whole lot of things within myself. It's supported in me recovering. You don't know nothing about that. So I don't expect you to understand or understand or even comprehend. So again, I'm not going down this road of self-destruction again, where again, in losing myself and the idea of other people, because they have no sense of identity. They have no sense of self. That's the balance and importance of finding yourself throughout a breakup, or through distance, or through the fact of you realizing, like, why did this happen? It doesn't have to be painful. Those who know you get to a place of growth, and those who know you get to a place of a deeper awareness of knowing yourself, things don't be painful. You may feel a little something, but the more you grow, you expect less of people. And what I mean by that is, like, you expect less from people that you know that don't have a higher standard for themselves, or don't really know the importance of valuing their well-being. So in that dynamic, I realizing, like, notice how people patterns are when they distance themselves or go away. What do they value? And that right there told me everything. When a person goes to this, and that's from lived experience, it shows me what they value. Now, if I'm sitting here and want to build on something more structurally and build on something for the long haul, then this person is showing me that they just building just for that moment. It ain't gonna add up. There's gonna be a conflict. That's gonna be bumping of heads and so forth. And one of the things that I realized, like, I was trying to tell this person, it's like, well, when you were with that person, what were you building on? What were y'all doing? Now, as much as people think shit ain't really real, like, bro, if you telling me most of the things y'all doing are just fucking and sucking and smoking weed, but you have no goals, you're not building on nothing, you can't convince me that you didn't waste your time. I'm just saying, that's my perspective. You can't convince me that you want something better or bigger, or to expand and be more prosperous. We have to be honest with ourselves. That's why I could not waste my energy or time, or even put anything into other people, simply because I already know like where they are. I already know, like, based off what they're projecting from social media, what they are, who they interact with, what they hang around. Bitch, you can't be mad at me because I went through shit and I no longer want to go through it no more. So I'm having a more higher standard towards life. And I realized what the fuck I built and I'm building. So again, people want to give all this illusion just because they were in something. Well, why wasn't it successful? And then not only after that, when someone's quick to blame the other person or point the finger in their no taking no accountability shows me everything. It really reveals to me like, you're a liability. I wanted to ignore this, but you're a liability. And then that I had to learn through like unrequited shit that became, when I was younger, like people who were not trying to heal or take accountability, how victimization would be their first go-to, or just things where it would end in a way where you just assuming like, oh man, like damn, not this again. And it's the emotional immaturity that leads to the emotional intelligence. It's also, again, the things that you ignore and the things that you have repressed or unprocessed and unresolved eventually will still come up. It will still, no matter what and how you try to dress it up, mask it, and so forth, it will still find a way to peak is what they call it, peak its ugly head. So now in that, it's the awareness on like, you gotta realize how many times I need to see this. I notice where this person is. Another thing is not ignoring the signs. Ladies, especially mothers, this, a lot of us didn't grow up in vetting. Look at that man's pattern. Stop being so fucking delusional and just look past the fact of, oh, he has money. You're just setting yourself up for self-destruction. Because if you don't have something on the back end, if you're not building something and so forth, and even if, let people reveal, like, if they're gonna breadcrumb you, if they wanna support, it's like, learn that person's mind, like their approach to life. Learn about them. Because they learning about you. Especially if they coming to prey on you and if it's just involving sex. Men are like, we are visual. And then most of the time, those that are very much intuitive, we 20 steps ahead of the ones that are just visual. Because we already know, like some men, when they can't control that, I realized that was the cycle that I was breaking with this person at that moment. There was the bigger picture. I told y'all, like the knowing the energy that plagued the generation and the men, is different types of spiritual warfare, but knowing the sexual things and so forth, how I realized like this was keeping them from progressing. But it also wasn't just them. It was a type of women that supported them in that. So it's not just simply about discipline yourself with that. It's also about disciplining yourself to weeding those type of women out and how you progress and how you build upon your life. Your life, again, men that are not in tune are going to destroy it. Same thing for men. Women that are not in tune, women who don't have a healthy dialogue with themselves, who haven't really faced anything when it comes to their father wounds or mother wounds and so forth, who really don't, in essence, like gotten to that place where it's not so much they need anyone, they know that they need them. They know that they have to show up for them. They know that there's going to be a balance. So there's not going to be a lot of, just from my perspective, a lot of expectations there. And it's a whole different perspective when it comes, because all women are different. They have different lived experiences. They navigate through things completely different. But it's the patience that she has. It's also things that I could not ignore, even in the patterns with a lot of people. And even in that situation, the energy kept showing up similarly to that reminded me of the mother wound, or that reminded me of the fact of this person really haven't done no shadow work. It don't matter how much they can convince me. And what it kept leading to, again, was the same result of the projections, basically unfulfillment. Because when you're in these relationships or connections where people haven't healed or haven't faced certain things and they keep ignoring and they're just trauma bonding, that's a way of trying to cope with the wound rather than actually acknowledging it. Because even when you're trying to cope with something that's familiar, you've convinced yourself that it's okay, it's right, it's normal, this is okay. But yet now you don't went through months, years, like some of y'all marriages and so forth, and just told yourself, I'm okay. No, you just continue to repress the same emotions from the previous dynamics without facing shit, and then repressed it with a familiar spirit, or just pushed it down even more through in your wound space with exchanging energy with a man who, again, who's not going to encourage you to heal or hold you accountable. Because that's the thing about self-worth and evolving. You can tell when you've gotten to a place, or within yourself, because you'll start holding that mirror part of yourself within a person and so forth accountable, just as you were. Because some people aren't aware or ready for that. Because what it does, it challenges them to overcome whatever spiritual warfare, whatever behavior pattern or learned behavior pattern. So when you're encouraging them, hey, I believe in you, or this and that, and so forth, we're going to get through this and so forth, therapy, whatever it is that you have to go through, that person has an opportunity to repair their connection with themselves, which again has a ripple effect on you. And again, it's able to teach them to hold space for themselves. Because that's what usually happens, is that if they're not able to hold space for themselves, they're not going to be able to reciprocate what you have to offer. And so that goes with, if you're not pouring into your own cup, or if that person doesn't know the importance of pouring into their own cup, you can't expect reciprocity. So as much as I, like, at the times where I wanted to ignore people's patterns, I had to see my own patterns, and I had to realize I had to learn to move different through discernment and so forth. And once you start doing this, you'll naturally start to see that, not that you don't have much in common, but what you did have in common could have been just sex, could have been just things monetarily, could have been things that were just on a surface level, not really more on a spiritual level. Because as much as people just want to assume that this isn't a spiritual thing, it's just as much as spiritual as it is physical. Because what comes with being equally yoked is the fact of the shell on the outside and the yolk in the inside. So for one, it's the balance with everything. Can you balance each other out? It's not about being perfect. This person is there to mirror something. This person is there to show you something. So relationships really, from my perspective, mirror back. Are you willing to evolve? Are you willing to hold yourself to a higher standard? Then if you are, you have to learn how to show up for you before you expect other people to. This is what has been missed. This has been a misinterpretation when it comes around romanticizing about love, because most people don't know how to love themselves or love the parts of themselves that they have purposely been in these same patterns for so long, because they keep blaming the other person. This is why I chose this. This is why I do this. But it truthfully reflects who you are to the depths and what you value. And it's okay to let people down. It's okay to let them down on the ground to where they've been at this bird's eye view, or they've been on their high horse, or been up here and only saw what's up here, but you let them down to the ground, and they have to, yeah, you're a part of this too. You're grounded now. You have to learn what keeps you grounded. And that's also important in something, is that when we don't realize, like, certain relationships can be a very much distraction from your spiritual growth, your mental and emotional, and how you show up in the physical. And we have to find a balance between that. It's natural. And that's the thing that we have missed out on, that's returning, that's being restored, is that it's important for a person to find out in their life what keeps them grounded. And what's challenging is that for a lot of us that have taken on the karmic debts and clearing karmic debts from things that our mothers and fathers or people have carried on for so long, and we're clearing these things, whether spiritually, through cycle breaking and so forth, these things can happen through people that we connect with. So Again, a lot of us didn't have mothers and fathers that were grounded. They were grounded in just superficiality. They were grounded in romanticizing love. They were grounded in just monetary shit, but never were grounded spiritually. And then, even if they were, some of them manipulated their practices, or they used things to try to manipulate their way through whatever it was instead of building upon it. Because life can give you what they say, life give your ass lemons, but you got to know how to make lemonade. Because when I look and reflect of people who were given certain things, in a way, you could have been in a better position had you focused more on yourself. That's why I don't make excuses. I'm giving y'all, like, this shit is to hold people accountable. I look at people who grew up in dynamics with money or whatever, certain things. Yes, they have their vices, but you have the opportunity to focus on yourself and build on those around you, because that's the important. So one of the biggest things from all of this is the patterns that can no longer be ignored. You have to see it, or when you don't want to see it, how many times that you're going to keep ignoring it. So for me, it's not a painful experience anymore with a lot of people. I realize and I understand and understand why they make the same decision. Either they don't know any better, or they don't want to, or simply because they don't know how to get out of the pattern, or they don't know how to shake it. And that's why sometimes we have to accept that it's best to remove ourselves. A lot of us, I know through my mother wound that I had to heal and navigate through, is also having the courage to walk away. And it can be challenging when you have been in situations where finances aren't the best, certain things where you didn't realize, like, oh gosh, why did I do this? Why I do this? And it can make you seem like you're stuck, but you're not. There's always a way out. There's infinite possibilities. It's the integrity. Sometimes you're there, which I've learned through things where you still have to be able to see the forest from the trees, but there's still something there in your presence that you have to still receive and learn from that individual, that person, or just the fact of, what am I here to see, to receive? What can I learn from this? So when I do move forward and progress, that it can be more structured. What from this can I learn to deepen my values with myself? What from this can I learn that I didn't value before that I can value now? So that's my message for today. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.